All right, all right. How are you doing today? All right. Yeah, this is Louis George Walker coming to you with the BFTAA and more show. Gotta get that out of there. Yeah, we'll get these silence. All right, how you doing? It is Monday. Yeah, we're starting a brand new week off, and I tell you, there's a lot of things going on. I'm trying to pedal with both hands and both feet and trying to keep everything rolling for you. But you are now listening to the BFTAA and more show with your host, Louis George Walker, coming to you live from the KUAW radio studios located in the W.E.B. Du Bois Learning Center in Kansas City, Missouri, 4510 East Linwood Boulevard. So we hope that you're ready for a great show. We have a lot of information, a lot of community information. I was trying to get all this stuff together, and it was kind of started a little bit later than I wanted to. So sometimes you just have to pedal and keep going, but it's always fun. I like to get the information out to the community. So I'm glad that you're here. The BFTAA and More show is a product of the W.E.B. Du Bois Learning Center and the Black Family Technology Awareness Association of Kansas City. We came together to form this station, KUAW, Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom. We started back in 2015, and now it is 2023, and we're still going strong. So we've been going for a few years here, and we're just glad to bring news and information that sometimes you just normally don't hear about our community, in our community, for our community, and stuff that's going on in our community to go out to the world. So we'd like to bring you something about STEM. We're about science, technology, engineering, and math, the STEM programs. That is what the BFTAA mainly does as a Black Family Technology Awareness Association. And the W.E.B. Du Bois Learning Center brings about continuing education and helping students reach their education potential. They have classes in math, reading, and science to help students not only achieve grade level, but to go beyond grade level. So if you want to get your child into a good program so that they can learn out of school on the weekends, on the evenings, like Monday night tonight, there's going to be reading classes going on. On Saturday, we have math and we have science. So contact the W.E.B. Du Bois Learning Center, Kansas City, Missouri, and look us up on the web. We're there, and you can always get your child enrolled. It's not too late. Now is the time. We also have in our Black Family Technology Awareness Association, who we provide the technology and science program for W.E.B. Du Bois, and we have a drone program going on right now. Our kids are learning how to fly drones. We have 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12-year-olds learning how to fly drones, learning to be able to launch them and control them, and learning all the terminology that is used in drone flying. So they're being taught by a licensed drone pilot, and they're learning real fast. A lot of good things going on there. I'm going to bring you some videos, not this week, next week. I've captured some, but I haven't had time to edit them and get them down. But get in contact with us. We're doing a lot of things in the community. This is an all-volunteer organization that we are glad to be of service in the Kansas City area. Now, sometimes it gets to be a lot of work and you're tired and all of that, but it's a good, happy, tired to be. So we get loaded at times, and sometimes we even might get a little testy with each other. But, you know, it's all in loving to do this for our community and for our children in the community. So thank you for joining us. We're glad that you're here. Now we're going to bring you a little bit of information of things that we have going on. One of the things that we always do, since we are about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. We like to bring you information coming from NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, because they have a lot of science and technology, not only that they do, and it's a fantastic governmental research organization in space, in science, in flight, aeronautics, all of that. But they just announced that they're going back to the moon next year, Artemis 4. And they have an African-American that's scheduled to pilot this flight, the first African-American to pilot a flight to the moon, really the first person of any type to go to the moon in the last 50 years, but the first African-American. There's also a Canadian on board. There are women on board. This is going to be a historic flight. We're going back to the moon, and we're planning on setting up stations, not on this trip, but they're planning on setting up a moon base. So they're going to explore. They're looking for water, looking for things that can be reused on the moon that they wouldn't have to transport up to the moon. So they're going to the South Pole. They're going to be looking for specific elements and things that can be beneficial to establishing a long-term base on the moon and use that as a stepping stone towards going to Mars. So as we are, this is really exciting. Things are really getting great in that space race. So we're moving on. It's a great thing. So we're going to go right now to what's going on this week in NASA. Here you go.
The Artemis II moon rocket is coming together, a high honor for some space explorers, and an intriguing find for the Webb Space Telescope. A few of the stories to tell you about this week at NASA. The core stage of the Space Launch System rocket for our Artemis II mission is coming together at our Michoud Assembly Facility. Teams recently added the engine section and will complete the stage by installing 4 RS-25 rocket engines. Artemis II will be the first Artemis flight around the moon and back with astronauts. During a March 23rd ceremony, the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum awarded its Michael Collins Trophy for Lifetime Achievement and for Current Achievement to former NASA astronaut Bill Anders and to the James Webb Space Telescope team, respectively. Anders took the famous Earthrise photograph on the Apollo 8 moon mission, and the recently deployed Webb telescope is already giving astronomers an increased understanding of the universe. The Webb Space Telescope has spotted a planet about 40 light-years from us with silicate cloud features in its swirling atmosphere. The telescope also detected water, methane, and carbon monoxide, as well as evidence of carbon dioxide. This is the largest number of molecules ever identified all at once on a planet outside our solar system. A new study using data from the recently retired Sophia Flying Observatory has resulted in the first detailed wide-area map of water distribution on the moon. The study provides hints about how water may be moving across the lunar surface near the moon's south pole, an important area of exploration for future Artemis missions. That's what's up this week at NASA. For more on these and other stories, follow us on the web at nasa.gov/TWA.
All right. So that's one of the first ones that we want to show you of what's going on in NASA. We also have some other information that we want to bring to you from NASA because they do a lot of great things. It's going to be exciting. Next week we'll be showing you some pictures of those astronauts because I'm sure they're releasing them today. So we're usually about a week behind on what's going on this week at NASA, but we're going to be coming back with some more. But we also show every week Space to Ground, which kind of lets you know what's going on in the space program from the space station that is already orbiting in low Earth orbit now, the space station, and what they're doing up there as they prepare for even deeper exploration into space or doing more experiments in space from that space station, trying to make it more of a commercial experiments and things that we'll be able to use in manufacturing and other things here on Earth. So let's go right now to Space to Ground.
Welcome to Space to Ground, and welcome to the Space Vehicle Mock-Up Facility at NASA's Johnson Space Center. This is where astronauts get to train on full-scale components of space vehicles. Every detail down to the switch is as close to the actual flying vehicle as possible, so when they get to space, everything feels and looks familiar. One of the latest mock-ups here is Orion, the spacecraft that will take the next humans to the moon again for the first time in more than 50 years. 4 human beings will be aboard Orion during the Artemis II mission, 1 Canadian and 3 NASA astronauts. They'll sit right here where I'm sitting, but in a real deal Orion spacecraft bound for the moon. We've actually been preparing for a return to the moon for a long time. The work that we've been conducting aboard the International Space Station has been crucial in our future lunar missions. To learn more about the research we've been doing with astronauts on the International Space Station missions, we're joined by Steve Platts, the chief scientist for NASA's Human Research Program here at NASA's Johnson Space Center. Steve, thanks so much for joining us. I'm sure you could name hundreds of experiments going on aboard the International Space Station that have to do with human research. What are some that come to mind?
Yep, quite a few going on right now. And one I like to talk about is studying the immune system. So, after the pandemic, we're all used to talking about immunity, but we know that the immune system changes in spaceflight. We saw it in shuttle, and we've definitely seen it in space station. We want to know how that will change going to the moon and especially going to Mars. We're looking at blood samples, see if any of the chemicals are changing, and then we also look at the cells. How do the cells respond to that time and space, to microgravity?
So it sounds like cells and immunity is a biology experiment. But do you have other biology experiments going on the space station?
We do. We collaborate a lot with the space biology program, and we have an experiment called Veggie that we're really excited about. And in that experiment, space biology is interested in how do the plants grow. So how do you package the seeds? What type of media do you use? How do you water them in space with no gravity? What we're interested in is the human component. So what is that countermeasure to growing the plants? We've actually had crew name their plants. They get really attached to the plants as they're growing them. They talk to their plants, but then the psychological countermeasure, the benefit of eating a fresh salad in the middle of your mission is huge. And then also the nutritional benefit that we have from growing our own crops. And as we think about going to Mars, long-term missions, will we have to grow crops there as well? So this gives us a head start on that.
So it sounds like they actually get to become space farmers.
They do, but no potatoes yet.
Sounds like there's tons going on in microgravity that we're researching. What about here on Earth?
Yeah, it's really expensive to do experiments in space. You have to fly all the equipment up, you have to bring samples back, and you have a limited number of crew members that you can have access to. So we have facilities here on Earth that we call analog. Some of them are for isolation, simulating that closeness of a small group of people in a confined space where you can't really get out. And then we also have a bed rest facility in Cologne, Germany, where we study the microgravity aspect. So we put them at 6-degree head down tilt for several months at a time, and then study how that fluid shift and how that deconditioning affects the human body.
Wow. So in addition to the ones you mentioned, I know that we've got our CHAPEA simulated Mars mission.
Yep.
So it sounds like we get to study isolation and confinement without even leaving the Earth.
We do, yes.
So Steve, I wanted to ask you, I heard that when astronauts get home from the International Space Station, as soon as they land, they have to do an obstacle course? Is that true?
Yeah. We've had several experiments like that, and the ones we're doing now, they're designed to look at the sensory motor system. So that's your sense of balance, your what controls your gait, how you walk, how you perceive the world up and down, and those kind of things. And we know that changes in space flight. And the longer you're in space, it's likely the worse that could be. So we're studying that now, where we do obstacle courses before flight, and then when they come home to see how space flight has changed that system.
So it sounds like when we go to the moon or Mars, we'll know, will they be able to hit the ground running, or will they need a while to get their landlines under them?
Yep, that's exactly why we're doing that experiment. Yep.
Very cool. Well, Steve, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.
To learn more about NASA's Human Research Program, be sure to follow @NASA Johnson on social media, and be sure to watch NASA TV on April 3rd to find out which astronauts are traveling to the moon, putting some of this amazing research to good work. That's Space to Ground for this week. I'm Chelsea Bayarte. Thanks for watching.
All right. Okay, I know I'm looking a little invisible to you right now. I have to work on my camera which is giving me a little different look on screen, and I couldn't see the adjustments that I was making. Let's see if we can make me less of a ghost. Not there. We're going to get there. Let's see. Okay, you guys can see through me right there, huh? Let's see. Okay. That's not there. I tell you, sometimes these settings can be very tricky. There. We're getting there. Let's go to the defaults. Hey, how's that? There we go. We're back. Back with you there. So that was Space to Ground. Really good to see them growing plants in space and looking at how they can do that and checking out your nutrition, how the body works. Because if they talk about going to the moon and staying there for months at a time, just like on the space station, they have to know all the effects. And if you talk about going to Mars, which is going to take years for people to go and come back. Now, just think about that. The people that sign up for the Martian trip will be gone for a number of years. And that could have a whole different effect on the body. And then while you're on Mars, what are you going to eat? And you're not, how much food can you carry with you? And what can you grow while you're there that may make it possible for you to extend your stay by being there? So that's really strange. I mean, that's going to be an adventure. I know they're doing a lot of research and a lot of checking it out, but man, I tell you, that's really going to be something as we look at going to Mars. If you'd be interested in knowing more about going to Mars, or if you think you would like to do it, let me know. I'd like to hear from you on Facebook or YouTube, or you can give me a call at 816-599-6893 and tell me your thoughts about being one of the people to go on a trip to Mars and back. And I noticed that the guy that Steve was interviewing said they didn't have any potatoes yet that they've grown, and that was kind of a throw in from The Martian. If you saw the movie The Martian, where the guy got stranded on Mars and he actually grew some potatoes, and that's how he was able to sustain himself waiting on rescue to come. It was a real good science fiction movie without a lot of without any monsters or things like that, but just showing what could happen in making a trip to Mars and some of the problems and things that could go wrong, but how with ingenuity, him being an engineer, was showing that he could come up with stuff that would help him to survive for a long time on Mars. So he was constantly thinking, constantly trying to figure out different things, and some would work, some wouldn't work. He had some setbacks. But that's what we try to teach our kids as we work with them in robotics and with the drone flying, is that it doesn't always work the way you think it will work the first time. You may have to change, you may have to go back, you may have to adjust. And that's a critical thinking skill that we want young people to learn, not just in STEM, but in everyday life that they have to use. So that's one of the benefits of getting involved in a STEM type program, is that learning that logical thinking, learning how to deal with failures, learning how to be a creative thinker, and think on the fly. We've had kids at robotics competitions that something breaks or goes wrong on their robot, and they've got to fix it and come up with a fix within maybe 30 minutes before their next event, or they'll forfeit that event. So they're working on the robot. They're trying to come up with creative ways and ideas. So those are the things that we want our young people to be able to do, to think on their feet, to be able to change gears and look at alternative solutions to problems. I mean, those things, those skills, being able to do that can help you throughout life, because things go wrong. I mean, you get up in the morning getting ready to go to work and you go out and the car doesn't start. Well, what do? Do you just throw up your hands and say it's all over? Or do you say, okay, what can I do to get to work? What other way can I go? What can I do to see about getting a car? Can I call somebody? All of those thinking processes are what we use day by day. So, getting your child involved in some STEM, some competition events like that would really be beneficial. And you can contact the Black Family Technology Awareness Association about it. And there are other groups doing competitive robotics, drone competition, 1080 racing in our community and in other communities that are really good opportunities for our young people. So get them involved in the sciences. Let them have fun and learn at the same time. Yeah, that's always a good thing. Well, now we're going to go on to some news that's going on in the community. Let's see what I've got here. There was a lot of things I wanted to talk to you about, and our time is steadily ticking. So, see if I can get up my next slide, or the first slide. Oh, I know what we want to do. This is the first of the month. And the first of the month, for all you stargazers, there's one more thing from NASA that comes out the first of every month, and it's called What's Up, so that you can see what's going on in the night sky. So you may have to get up early in the morning or right at dusk and look into the night sky, and you can see some astounding sights. Just a week or two ago, they were talking about the planets aligning, that there were, I think, 5 planets that lined up in the night sky that you could see. And a lot of this you can see with the naked eye or with a set of binoculars, but it's something to know what's going on out in the sky. So here we go with What's Up for the month of April from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
Fastest moving of the planets in our solar system, will reach its highest and most visible in the evening sky for the year. Mercury is only visible in the sky for a few weeks every 3 to 4 months. The rest of the time, it's too close to the sun in the sky and is lost in its bright glare. And since the planet orbits so close to the sun, it's always near the sun in the sky, appearing low near the horizon for no more than an hour or two, either following sunset or preceding sunrise. Some of Mercury's fleeting appearances, known as apparitions, are better for observing than others, for a combination of reasons that have to do with how our view of the solar system changes with the seasons, what hemisphere you're in, and what phase the planet happens to be showing us at the time. For this apparition in the northern hemisphere, the best viewing is April 3rd through the 11th, as the planet appears higher in the sky each evening. It quickly fades in brightness after that, as the phase it shows us becomes an increasingly slimmer crescent. Also on April 11th, you'll find the planet Venus, right next to the Pleiades star cluster. The two will be close enough to appear in the same field of view through binoculars. This pairing makes for a fun reminder that the night sky is kind of like a time machine. The farther out in space you look, the farther back in time you're seeing. On that night, you're seeing light that left Venus about 9 minutes earlier, whereas the light of the Pleiades left those stars around 400 years ago. The latter half of April includes some awesome close approaches of the moon with 3 of the bright planets in the sky. On April 15th and 16th, you'll find the crescent moon rising with Saturn. Find them low in the southeastern sky in the couple of hours before sunrise. Then on the evening of the 23rd, find the slim crescent moon hanging just 5 degrees above Venus in the west after sunset. And on April 25th, the moon finds its way over to Mars high up in the west after dark. At this time, around the 26th and 27th, the moon will be at its first quarter phase, meaning it appears as a half moon high in the sky after dark. The first quarter moon is a great time to pull out your binoculars or telescope if you have them, as it's an ideal time to observe the moon's craters and mountains along the terminator, the day-night boundary, with ease. Lots of astronomy clubs plan public observing nights around this time as well, and you can look for events in your area with NASA's Night Sky Network. April brings the annual Lyrid meteor shower. It's a medium-strength shower that can produce up to 20 meteors per hour at its peak under ideal conditions. The Lyrids peak this year in the pre-dawn hours of April 23rd, though you should see a few shooting stars on the morning before and after the peak as well. Fortunately, the peak falls just a couple of days after the new moon. That means the moon won't interfere with this year's Lyrids, overwhelming fainter meteors in the glow of moonlight. The Lyrids are named for the constellation Lyra, which is near the point in the sky where their meteors appear to come from, called the radiant. They're one of the oldest known meteor showers, with the first recorded sighting in China some 2,700 years ago. They originate as dust particles from a comet during its 400-year orbit around the Sun. The Lyrids tend to produce fast-moving meteors that lack persistent trails, but they can also produce the occasional bright meteor called a fireball. To observe them, find a comfortable spot away from bright city lights, get horizontal, and look straight up. You'll see the most meteors by looking slightly away from the origin point, which is near the bright star Vega. So here's wishing you clear skies to catch a few shooting stars one April morning when the forecast calls for light showers of comet dust with a chance of fireballs. Here are the phases of the moon for April. Stay up to date with all of NASA's missions to explore the solar system and beyond at nasa.gov. I'm Preston Dykes from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and that's what's up for this month.
All right. So that's information of things going on at NASA, and we're definitely glad that we're able to bring that to you. I was just looking at my key setup here, and I don't know if you got to hear the Space to Ground program. So as we go off the air, or as the show ends, I'll run Space to Ground again and make sure that you'll be able to hear it, because I think I may not have had the audio turned on for that program when it ran. But never fear, we always try and catch up where we can. Now, we've got some interesting things going on in Kansas City this week that are really, well, let's see, I don't know if they're all going on this week. I think one of them may be next week. I think Friday. But let's start up with the first one and see what we've got. Let's see if I can get this, try to get all this news into one spot. So let's see what I can bring up for you here. Turn this on. Bingo. All right. So now the first thing we got up here is and oh man, I tell you, this is today and yesterday. So if you didn't get it, you may be running into a problem with that. Let's see if we can bring that back up. Just a second. Okay, yeah, manual key. Let's see. Let's get it back going. There. Let us help you keep your home. So this is assistance for active evictions that's going on. It's going to be April the 3rd, which was today, and tomorrow, April the 4th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. If you know anybody that is going through eviction, tomorrow may be the last time to get in touch with these people, but they have assistance for active people. They want you to bring photo identification, your eviction court papers, recent pay stubs, recent bank statements, a full copy of your lease, recent utility bills, your 2020 and 2021 W-2 or tax returns, and a Social Security letter if applicable. So this assistance is for people who have an upcoming court date regarding eviction. And it's being CHES, C-H-E-S Incorporated is bringing this help, this assistance to you. So really you got to move fast because they want to get with you tomorrow. Let's see if they have a location here. 31st and Gillum. Refreshments will be served free parking at 31st and Gillum. Where do you have to go to, though? Oh, CHES Incorporated, or C-H-E-S, I guess they pronounce that CHES, at 3101 Gillum Plaza, El Torrin. And the phone number to call, which is on this flyer, I don't know if you can see it. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Oops, just a second. There you go. The phone number down in the corner is 816-533-7417. So 816-533-7417. Or you can contact Chess Inc. at www.chesinc.org. So they're going to have free refreshments and free parking at 31st and Gillum. Get in touch with the people at Chess Incorporated. They want to work, provide help in keeping your home. So if you're in a bad way right now, if layoffs or just haven't recovered from the pandemic has you behind and evictions seem to be at your doorstep, then you want to get in touch with the people at CHES Incorporated. So they're having a special event. It was today from 10 a.m. to 3, and it's going to be tomorrow, April the 4th, from 10 a.m. to 3. So if you can get some time off work or what have you, please try and get there so that you can save your home. Also, they tell you what to bring: photo identification, your eviction court papers, recent pay stubs, recent bank statements, a full copy of your lease that you have, your recent utility bills, your 2020 and 2021 W-2s or your tax returns, and your Social Security letter if you have one. So these are things that, and they're telling you about keeping records. We ought to keep some of those things. Sometimes we don't know what happened. We get our money back from the tax people. We don't know what happened with our tax return. We're just glad we got a check. But people, you should keep your tax returns for 7 years. So you should have tax returns going back to whatever that date would be, 2017 or 2018. You should have those tax returns. You should keep them for 7 years. So make sure that you hold on to some of those records. I know it's hard if you're moving and things like that, but those are things to have. But be sure and get in contact with the people at Chess Incorporated so that you can see about keeping your home. We hate to see anybody lose their home, get evicted, go through all that trauma if you don't have to, if there's some way that you can work to save it. Plus, that is a lot of your wealth right there. You know, the value of your home, the equity that you have built up in it already. Those are things that we don't want to just take for granted. I know sometimes we get so involved in day-to-day living that we forget some of the things that are helping us or that can be there to help us in the future because we're so busy with today and the problems that we have today. But keeping your home, keeping your property is a very important thing, a very valuable thing, that you don't want it to go just back to the bank because you got evicted and you lose all that you have put into it. So be sure and check with them tomorrow. That's tomorrow, April the 4th, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And that can maybe help you save your house. And also, I would give them a call even if it was Wednesday, just saying, hey, I just heard about it. But be sure and get in touch with the people at CHES Incorporated. All right. Now, the next thing that we have is something to help you job-wise. Let's see if we can get that one up here. Just a second. There we go. There. Federal government and government agencies and banking career opportunities, where El Centro at 650 Minnesota Avenue in Kansas City, Kansas. Wednesday, April the 5th, from 1 to 4 p.m. They're going to be having a small job fair, or you can find out about job opportunities. So be sure and get in touch with them at El Centro, 650 Minnesota Avenue in Kansas City, Kansas, Wednesday from 1 to 4 p.m. Federal government agency and banking career opportunities. The contact number I have here is a Teresa Green at, it doesn't have it on that. Teresa Green, the Senior Community Affairs Specialist, at 816-234-8084. So find out about this program, this project that's going on Wednesday at El Centro, 650 Minnesota Avenue, Kansas City, Kansas. It's a career opportunities. That means jobs, and not just any jobs, because they're talking about a career where it will be ongoing, where you can advance, where you can move up. So these are things, jobs that may last you a lifetime. So you don't want to miss out on that. Be sure and check out. You can go to work for the government. It's not a bad place to work. My wife worked there for 20 years and retired from there. So it's not a bad thing. So be sure and check that out if you're looking for some employment or if you're looking for a new career. All right. Now, another event that's going to be going on this Friday right here in Kansas City, April the 7th. Operation Hero Homecoming. They're going to be honoring a World War II Medal of Honor recipient. So this is a thing to help right some wrongs and past discriminatory actions, but they're going to be honoring World War II Medal of Honor recipient, Private First Class Willie Frederick James Jr., United States Army. So this is from World War II, so it's 60, 70 years overdue, and that's going to be a big event that's going on at the Black Archives, It says Willie James Jr. was one of 7 African Americans to receive the Medal of Honor for service in World War II, an award that was delayed decades by bias and discrimination. He enlisted as a young man, and he died as a young man. That was recalled by Margaret Peter, one of James's family members, at a 2015 event, Unsung Heroes. Yeah, James was born on March the 18th, 1920 in Kansas City, Missouri, and grew up there the only child of a widowed mother. He was drafted in the Army in September of 1942, but before he left Kansas City, he married, not even having time for a proper honeymoon with wife Valencine. So in the last days of 1944, during the Battle of the Bulge, and we hear a lot about that, but you probably haven't heard about African American to win the Medal of Honor, which is the highest honor that you can get from the United States of America. So certain African American troops that were formerly largely barred from combat duty in the Battle were called upon to volunteer and form replacement battalions to supplement the depleted infantry regiments. So in the Battle of the Bulge, the Germans did a surprise attack in the Christmas season, and they were pushing the Americans back and overrun a lot of positions. So they needed help. So even though most African Americans then were serving in the detachment to pick up bodies off the field, to bury bodies, to be cooks, to be drivers, things like that, anything other than frontline soldiers, because of the racism of the time that believed that blacks could not make good soldiers, which was proved over and over again to be untrue. It was proved in the Revolutionary War. It was proved in the Civil War, in World War I, but shows you how strong racism can persist, that people were still passing around that story and believing it, that we couldn't fly airplanes, and the Tuskegee Airmen proved that to be wrong, that we couldn't do those things. But anyway, they were called upon to volunteer as replacement battalions, and James was one of more than 2,200 black soldiers selected for an expedited 4-week training course at the Ground Forces Reinforcement Center in France. He was recognized in that training for his marksmanship and leadership, and emerged as Private First Class James, a scout with the 413th Infantry Regiment, 104th Timberwolf Infantry Division. So just 2 days after his 25th birthday, on March 20th, 1945, PFC James and the other 413th Infantry Regiment reinforcement arrived in the ruins of Cologne, Germany. Just 2 weeks after the Americans first entered the ancient city, joining up with the 2nd Battalion, and they didn't stay put long. For the next day, they crossed the Rhine River and relieved the 26th Infantry Regiment. The 1st Infantry Division, pinned down by German artillery for several days, the 413th slowly began to resume the offensive and gain ground. German POW numbers grew as some defenders were overrun, but SS troops remained at the attack, withdrawing to regroup as the Allies pushed ahead. PFC James was one of several to lead a rifle squad in pursuit. After a firefight near another city nearly 100 miles from Cologne, the 3 black squads gained the advantage, ultimately capturing or killing 40 SS troops, an event that was reported by Stringer, Ann Stringer, a United Press war correspondent, who wrote, "An all-Negro platoon saw action for the first time today and licked Adolf Hitler's supermen." The 413th continued deeper into Germany, westward toward the Westner River. And on April 7, 1945, they crossed the Westner River into Leipzig. He was sent to scout the enemy position and made critical observations while pinned down by heavy fire for more than an hour. Still under fire, he raced back to his company to report his observation. Undaunted, James volunteered to lead the attack on Lippensenberg. As the men advanced, they drew fire from every direction. SS troops emerged from the windows and doorways of the town. Platoon leader Lieutenant A.J. Cerbella was gravely wounded in the attack. James raced to his aid, intending to pull him to safety. Before he could make any movements, James was struck and killed by a German sniper. So he gave his life to save another wounded soldier. He was put in for the Medal of Honor, but as a lot of times they lose papers when it was an African American, when things happened, things like that. But the lives of the National World, his legacy lives on at the National World War II Museum in an exhibition called Fighting for the Right to Fight, African American Experiences in World War II. His grave is in the Netherlands American Cemetery in Margretstein, and those of the other 8,300 Americans buried there is lovingly tended by the American Battle Monuments Commission, the Dutch people and visitors who come year-round to pay their respects. In 1996, the United States government affirmed that 7 African Americans, including PFC James, had been unjustly denied the Medal of Honor for action during World War II. In 1997, in a White House ceremony, President Bill Clinton presented his wife, Valentine, with her husband's Medal of Honor, the U.S. military's highest decoration. It had taken more than 50 years for this belated recognition of his heroic acts performed under the most adverse conditions. So that there's going to be a recognition, military recognitions, and an unveiling. I don't know if it's a plaque or what they're bringing to Kansas City, but it's going to go on this Friday at 11 a.m. at the Black Archives. And Emmanuel Cleaver, Representative Emmanuel Cleaver, will be there along with other speakers. A biography by Willie Frederick James will be read. The Master of Ceremonies will be Chief Warrant Officer Walter Shelley, retired. Keynote speaker will be Lieutenant General Milford Beagle, Jr., and a proclamation by Congressman Emmanuel Cleaver. Also a proclamation by Kansas City Mayor Quentin Lucas. Presentation of the American Legion Wayne Minor Post and a PFC Wiley unveiling will happen. The display opens at 12:05. So they're going to have a wreath ceremony, chaplain benediction, placement of the wreath, a firing salute, a 3-volley, and the playing of taps. The color guard starts, march to the Black Archives of Mid-America. That will happen at 11:14. So it all starts at 11 o'clock. At 11 o'clock at 12th and Paseo, and then there will be a procession back to the Black Archives of Mid-America at 1722 East 17th Street. So all of this is going to be going on. It's going to be a big event. It starts this Friday at 11 a.m., 12th and the Paseo, going down to 17th Terrace where the Black Archives is. So if you have a chance to, go down to witness this, to attend the ceremony, or just to watch the procession of the honor guard, all of that, because that's in honor of an African American who gave so much, as they say, fighting for the right to fight, which is something that's you wouldn't think of it. But Operation Hero Homecoming will happen this Friday, 11 a.m., starting at 12th and Paseo, and going down to the Black Archives of Mid-America. So you want to be there for this event. It should be a great time. It's a solemn occasion, but it is one that is well earned by one of our ancestors. So let's show up for that. So those are some of the things happening this week. You can find out about how to keep your home for active evictions. If you're actually in the eviction process right now, then that's what you want to check out. That's what I wanted to bring you today from the BFTAA and More show. I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to go off now, but we're going to bring you what I don't know if you heard. So I will play it back now to make sure that you do get a chance to hear it, and that will be the Space to Ground program. Thank you for joining us. BFTAA and More is every Monday from 5 to 5:45 right here, KUAW Radio, Kansas City, Missouri. We're glad to be here. I'm your host, Louis George Walker, and we will see you again next Monday. Bye-bye now.
Welcome to Space to Ground, and welcome to the Space Vehicle Mock-Up Facility at NASA's Johnson Space Center. This is where astronauts get to train on full-scale components of space vehicles. Every detail down to the switch is as close to the actual flying vehicle as possible, so when they get to space, everything feels and looks familiar. One of the latest mock-ups here is Orion, the spacecraft that will take the next humans to the moon again for the first time in more than 50 years. 4 human beings will be aboard Orion during the Artemis II mission, 1 Canadian and 3 NASA astronauts. They'll sit right here where I'm sitting, but in a real deal Orion spacecraft bound for the moon. We've actually been preparing for a return to the moon for a long time. The work that we've been conducting aboard the International Space Station has been crucial in our future lunar missions. To learn more about the research we've been doing with astronauts on the International Space Station missions, we're joined by Steve Platts, the chief scientist for NASA's Human Research Program here at NASA's Johnson Space Center. Steve, thanks so much for joining us. I'm sure you could name hundreds of experiments going on aboard the International Space Station that have to do with human research. What are some that come to mind?
Yep, quite a few going on right now. And one I like to talk about is studying the immune system. So, after the pandemic, we're all used to talking about immunity, but we know that the immune system changes in spaceflight. We saw it in shuttle, and we've definitely seen it in space station. We want to know how that will change going to the moon and especially going to Mars. We're looking at blood samples, see if any of the chemicals are changing, and then we also look at the cells. How do the cells respond to that time and space, to microgravity?
So it sounds like cells and immunity is a biology experiment. But do you have other biology experiments going on the space station?
We do. We collaborate a lot with the space biology program, and we have an experiment called BFTAA that we're really excited about. And in that experiment, space biology is interested in how do the plants grow. So how do you package the seeds? What type of media do you use? How do you water them in space with no gravity? What we're interested in is the human component. So what is that countermeasure to growing the plants? We've actually had crew name their plants. They get really attached to the plants as they're growing them. They talk to their plants, but then the psychological countermeasure, the benefit of eating a fresh salad in the middle of your mission is huge. And then also the nutritional benefit that we have from growing our own crops. And as we think about going to Mars, long-term missions, will we have to grow crops there as well? So this gives us a head start on that.
So it sounds like they actually get to become space farmers.
They do, but no potatoes yet.
Sounds like there's tons going on in microgravity that we're researching. What about here on Earth?
Yeah, you know, it's really expensive to do experiments in space. You have to fly all the equipment up, you have to bring samples back, and you have a limited number of crew members that you can have access to. So we have facilities here on Earth that we call analog. Some of them are for isolation, simulating that closeness of a small group of people in a confined space where you can't really get out. And then we also have a bed rest facility in Cologne, Germany, where we study the microgravity aspect. So we put them at 6-degree head down tilt for several months at a time, and then study how that fluid shift and how that deconditioning affects the human body.
Wow. So in addition to the ones you mentioned, I know that we've got our CHAPEA simulated Mars mission.
Yep.
So it sounds like we get to study isolation and confinement without even leaving the Earth.
We do, yes.
So Steve, I wanted to ask you, I heard that when astronauts get home from the International Space Station, as soon as they land, they have to do an obstacle course? Is that true?
Yeah. We've had several experiments like that, and the ones we're doing now, they're designed to look at the sensory motor system. So that's your sense of balance, your what controls your gait, how you walk, how you perceive the world up and down, and those kind of things. And we know that changes in space flight. And the longer you're in space, it's likely the worse that could be. So we're studying that now, where we do obstacle courses before flight, and then when they come home to see how space flight has changed that system.
So it sounds like when we go to the moon or Mars, we'll know, will they be able to hit the ground running, or will they need a while to get their landlines under them?
Yep, that's exactly why we're doing that experiment. Yep.
Very cool. Well, Steve, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.
To learn more about NASA's Human Research Program, be sure to follow @NASA Johnson on social media, and be sure to watch NASA TV on April 3rd to find out which astronauts are traveling to the moon, putting some of this amazing research to good work. That's Space to Ground for this week. I'm Chelsea Bayarte. Thanks for watching.